you could feel it. You could feel it in the room, like, oh my God, what now? What's going to happen next? You know what? Tried to have me fired that evening, like with hours to go before the taping. Why is this on a piece of paper like this? This is dispiriting to me as a host. I felt like the leadership was severely lacking. I was really disappointed at the lack of leadership.
Hello everyone, I'm the Pageant Nerd. Today I'm bringing you a rare and genuinely candid conversation with the man who stood at the centre of the Miss Universe 2025 finals, comedian, actor and filmmaker Steve Byrne. In this interview, Steve walks me through the lead up to the show, the backstage atmosphere, and the moments that didn't make the broadcast. He speaks openly about being almost removed as host the night before the telecast, what it felt like on stage during the delays and the Q&A round, and those final seconds before the winner was announced. He also shares his impression of the finalists, addressed some of the biggest fan discussion points, and tells me whether he'd return to host Miss Universe again in Puerto Rico next year. Let's get into it. Steve Byrne, thanks so much for chatting to me.
You got it.
I'm going to assume that most of the people that are watching this video are doing so because of your recent emceeing duties of a certain beauty pageant. But normally you're a stand-up comedian, you've produced and written your own sitcom, starred in your own sitcom, you've produced and directed documentaries and feature films. So what goes on your driver's license as your occupation?
Well, I never thought about it that way. I guess stand-up's been my forte. I mean, that's how I got into all this. So, it's been over 25 years of being a stand-up. Started in New York City and moved to LA, and that's how it all snowballed. So all those opportunities you had mentioned all bubble up from stand-up. So I guess that's the collective pillar.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess diving straight into it, being a stand-up and then going to hosting one of the world's biggest beauty pageants. How did this Miss Universe hosting gig come about?
I got an invite from my manager, and when I first got it, I was like, "What? Like, you got to be kidding me! Like, why me? You see, I have a spinner rack. I'm a big hockey fan. I'm a stand-up. I'm not like, I don't have global appeal. I'm familiar in the States, but for sure, this was something that was certainly different. But at the same time, it was like, what a wonderful opportunity. If they're serious, yeah, I'd love to do it just for the experience alone. And 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 the experience was beyond anything I could ever comprehend or even imagine prior to going. I thought it was kind of like, you show up, you do it, and we're gonna have a good time. And it was just like, wow, this is crazy.
Well, I look forward to delving into that craziness. But maybe just from the beginning of this gig coming about, how familiar were you with pageants prior to heading over to Thailand?
Yeah, I would say very unfamiliar. I mean, as a kid, I remember, it was a very communal kind of experience. You'd sit down with your parents, you'd watch, Miss USA, you'd watch Miss Universe or Miss America, and then Miss Universe. And that was something that was kind of like, I guess, like a must-see TV event when I was younger. And, again, with another example of how shocked I was by everything, to see the lack of accessibility that people in the United States had to watching this year's pageant was a little mind-blowing to me, because I had a multitude of people DMing me, writing me, texting me saying, I thought this was on Peacock and I'm getting the Telemundo feed, so everything's in Spanish. And the United States, I think, is probably the fifth or maybe eighth biggest market for Miss Universe. But still, you would think if there was some semblance of outreach on behalf of the pageant to the States and making sure that, the accessibility for people viewing it in the States was there, I think they could have even done bigger numbers. But to know that wasn't even, again, something that they were keeping track of, I got to be honest, I was just, it's just another thing where I was like, wow, what a lost opportunity.
Well, as you may well know, your current president used to be the former owner of this Universe organization. And it was actually 10 years ago when NBC
stopped televising it, in part because of some of the things that he had said and, whatnot. So it's kind of
Roger, I'm very familiar with that. And, it's a big letdown. I'm not happy about it.
No, but I think that's where it's interesting because, well, we can get into that later, but somebody had brought up the fact that when he ran it, how much better it was, which, as an American was pretty shocked to hear because, when Trump's name is brought up, it's going to go one of two ways. Somebody's going to hate him or somebody's going to love him. I'm a comedian. So as a comedian, I love what he's provided me the last, 8 to 12 years. But yeah, I do know the history that he had ownership and then got rid of it. And, there's a story later on I could tell you about it, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, the Trump era, as it has been known, is something that a lot of pageant fans do long for, which is kind of ironic, I guess. But anyway, I will put a pin in that, and I will make sure to ask you about that. So anyway, you get to Thailand, presumably a few days before the pageant. What can you tell us about the prep for it, the rehearsal process, all that good stuff?
Yeah, look, this is something that I've hosted things in the past. As a comic, I've been, privileged to be a part of certain things. This was something where, I think, before I go there, that video with Nawat goes viral, right? So that video is kind of like what's setting the tone all of a sudden. Like this video goes out and there's all these like, because Nawat's Asian and I'm Asian, what happened was I was announced as the host, and then like just a handful of days later, this video goes viral, and I started getting flooded with messages and DMs saying, you're racist against Mexicans, you're racist piece of, all this stuff. And I was like, you're accusing me of being racist, but I wasn't the one that said this stuff. The other guy said this. So if anybody's racist, it's you, because not all Asians look alike. So that was like my first like kind of introduction into the whole pageant. And I was like, okay, well, it's going to be yesterday's news. We'll get on with it. And then I get there, I have, my first kind of like read through, and I submitted a ton of jokes over the 2 weeks prior to, and then, we went through the script, and then I think it was the next day, I heard a judge missed his flight. And then the next day, another judge quit. And that guy, Omar, had quit due to, hearsay. And I think what I had heard when I was privy to all this stuff over the course of the 3 days leading up to it, this is probably the third day now. It's just like every day there was something, right? So when the whole thing with Omar happened, I was talking to one of the producers, and they were explaining to me, again, this is not my world, right? But the voting and how all that happens. And they were explaining to me that he was confusing one aspect of the voting with another part of the voting, and how he wasn't correlating something technically. Yeah. So technically he was wrong. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm like, look, the minute I hear it, I'm like, oh, that sounds right, I guess. But I have no reference or perspective to it all. So I'm just sitting there as somebody who's the host, watching this all unpack, and the news cycle and the snowball and the drama leading up to it all. And what really kind of bummed me out was that all of it was noise, and the noise was distracting from the hard work that I saw 120 women putting into a pageant that I think I was very apathetic to it all, because I thought, you just turn on Miss Universe, they show up that day at noon, and then, they film it at 3, and then that's the contest, right? I had no idea they're there for a month. I had no idea that they're competing over the course of those 4 weeks. I had no idea that they're, essentially sequestered and giving up all these things at a hotel. So it made me, once I saw the inner workings of it all, I really felt for them. And I was like, I was trying to do my small part to say, hey, this is the news. It's about them. It's not about the judge. It's not about, Nawad. It's not about anybody else except for these 120 women. And that was kind of like my stance. And I'm glad all this happened, because as we're going to the tape date, just to wrap up the answer to this question, as we're marching towards the tape date, I was like, it was good to have that that kind of like perspective to go, you know what your job is. It's not about you. It's not about telling jokes. It's not being selfish and going, where's my stuff? It's literally just do the best job you can to facilitate everything so that all their hard work pays off. And don't be the bump on the road. Be, you know, be something that's going to be value added when you're on stage. That was my goal.
And I'm thrilled that you've said that, because it's something that I kind of preempted that I'm going to ask you a bit later about the on the finals night. But I do want to get to your rehearsal story, because I did watch your story on Instagram from a couple of days ago,
Okay.
and sort of getting you to relive it word for word for people who may not have seen it. Could you maybe just give me the Cliff Notes version?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I had that perspective, and had I not seen all this, and had I not seen the news cycle, and had I not shown up, and every day it's just like you could feel it in the room, like, oh my God, what now? What's going to happen next? You know, and then it's like Miss Jamaica Falls. It's like that was the day before. Like I'm like, oh my God, this poor girl, and then these poor girls. It just felt like there was a dark cloud existing over it, and so even that day at rehearsal, I was like, I'm a comic by nature. I like to keep things light. I was the star of my own sitcom. I know what it's like to kind of like be the center of attention. So let's keep it nice and light. I show up at rehearsal. I had a bunch of jokes. We went through all the jokes. We felt like these were probably the 6 best jokes. Let's implement them in. But as I'm going on, the first day I show up, I introduce myself to everybody, all the girls on stage. I just say, it's an honor. It's a privilege to share the stage. I'll do everything in my power to make sure you gals have a great time. I don't want to be in the way. I just want to make sure you have a great time. So that's how we kind of start off the day, right? So I go through, I'm learning my blocking. Blocking is staging. You know, there's a lot of coordination and synchronicity with 120 women and music and all this stuff. So I'm learning my cues. I'm learning the earpiece. I'm talking to the director, to the producers, everybody. I'm listening. I'm there from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and just going through the beats of it all, and just trying to like re-rehearse everything so that the day of, I don't mess anything up. Okay. As we're going on, Nawat is there, and then I was down on the floor talking to somebody, and he was there, and somebody said, "Oh, this is Nawat." So I of course have to go over and introduce myself. It's not the other way around. So I introduce myself. Hey, you need to, not like, hey, thanks for doing this. Nothing, just like cutting to the chase. You need to do this. You need to scream. I need more energy. I need this. I need that. I'm like, yes, 100%. I'll do it. I'll do everything in my power to make sure I have a great show. But I am going through the blocking. I'm learning the script. I'm trying to learn camera placements, and everybody was accusing me of like looking up at the screen, but the cameras were lower than the stage. So that's why it always looks like I'm like this. So just all this stuff in retrospect. But Nawat really kind of, I'd say, was pretty aggressive, and he was pretty cold about it, you know? And I was just like, all right, I just thought of it as like, this guy's put through the ringer. He's getting chastised on social media, and it's the day before the pageant. I'm sure he's dealing with all the stress and making sure you got to come through, right? So I'm like, all right, it is what it is. I'll do my best. You know, he's probably under a lot of stress. So rehearsal ends. I go home. I got to be there at 6. Again, the girls show up at 1 in the morning. They show up at 1. I got to be there at 6. We're taping at 8. Again, another reason, do it for these gals. Do it for these gals. I show up. I've got to run through the teleprompter. So I'm off to the side, on the side of the stage, just reading my lines and going over everything with the woman that's accelerating the dial, slow or fast, whatever. And I'm reading everything. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, wow, all my jokes are taken out, right? And they're like, yep, Nawad went over everything last night, and he basically took everything out. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was left with like 2 jokes, right? So then Nawad added that I had to thank him for having us all in Thailand, and I had to say, you're an amazing man. And I was like, you taking all my jokes, and I got to say that? So I kind of said it with, not the most sincere delivery, right? So he does all that. And then it was in the aftermath of it all that I'd heard from folks on production that it was interesting because I didn't say this in the video, but the director pulled me aside before the taping and said, stick to the script, do your job, and take the money and run. There's a lot going on here, and I don't want you getting blamed for anything that could possibly go wrong. So please, just, I'm telling you as somebody that just met you, that likes you, that's rooting for you, just stick to this. I go, okay, yeah, that's cool. I mean, it is not my show. This is their show. So 100%. I was told after the taping by a handful of people that I left at 6 the day before. This is after the taping. That Nawat tried to have me fired that evening, like with hours to go before the taping. And production was like, are you crazy? Absolutely not. We can't do that. Like, we'd have to go through all the blocking again. And it's 8 o'clock at night. Like, no, we can't do that. And they were like, even if we were going to replace him, like, who'd you replace him with? Nawat was like, me. So Nawat wanted to replace me with him. And then he's adding lines. And in retrospect, when I rewound it all, I was like, that's why the director said that to me. The director wasn't forthcoming about me being fired, but the director was essentially telling me what, I was,
keep your head down.
I was probably good. He was trying to fire me. So I know production and he was sticking up for me. That was a big part of it. And that's when that all kind of blew up that following day. And then you see resignation after resignation after resignation. And then, fraud. And then, being drug and trafficking charges. I was just like, this is banana town. It was great to be on the ride, but now I don't mind talking and discussing and just like full disclosure, saying everything that I witnessed and I personally was affected by. That's why I'm here.
And I am grateful for your candor. So tell me, just take us through, I guess, like on the night during the taping, what was the vibe on stage? What were you kind of sensing with the judges, with, the execs? Like, what were you kind of feeling during the actual telecast?
Again, I have to stress this. I think after having been on film sets, after having, my own show, and after having been on other television sets or tapings, when you do a talk show, the vibe is always dictated by the top of the pyramid, right? And the top of this pyramid was, from what I gathered, just scattershot. It didn't seem like there was real direction. It didn't seem like there was a real, any sense of leadership. There was never anybody that came over and said, hey, thanks for doing this. Welcome to Miss Universe. It was just like, you just showed up and did it. It was very odd. So I think that day it was very, it was like chaotic, but there was also a lot of stress. A gentleman named Mario, who I guess is the president of the whole thing, he came over and was, I was going after the prompter. I was getting ready to get situated, and he pulled me aside and he introduced himself and he said, I need you to do a great job. We have millions of dollars invested here. Their livelihoods are dependent on this. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, why would you say this to somebody? Like, I'm the host. Like, don't put your pressure on me. I'm here to make sure everybody has a good time. I'm a professional. This is what I do for a living. I can be very accommodating. I can be corporate. I can do 1,000 things, right? But I would never in a million years pull somebody aside who's the host or the face of the telecast for the next few hours going, so much is dependent on this. You need to crush it. Like, I never met you. You don't know who I am. You didn't even really say, hey, how you doing? How you feeling today? Nothing. You need to X, Y, Z. It's like, if this was 10, 15 years ago in my career, I'd be stressed the fuck out. But I'm like at the point in my life where I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I'm very confident. I'm secure in myself. It's just like, I get it. You're stressed out. Nawad is stressed out. Everybody's stressed out. I'm not stressed. I'm just going to go up and do a great time because, I've had the privy of talking to a lot of these gals and it was great. So, I mean, that, I think the vibe on set was kind of chaos, but then again, it is chaos, right? It's like all the girls are constantly changing, getting ready from gown to swimsuit to whatever. So my job was just to keep it nice and light. And I was trying to be polite and outgoing to everybody.
So as the announcements are made and we get to top 30 and we're getting to top 12 and all that sort of thing. I'm not the type of pageant vlogger that's going to ask you about all the individual results, which is probably what some of my viewers are going to want to know, but I'm probably just more interested in your perspective of, you know, what you're seeing as we're getting to the final stages.
Of like the chaos, right? Is that, and I discussed this where, you know, we're coming out of break, we're going from 30 to 12, and in my earpiece, they're saying, Steve, I need you to kill time. And I'm like, okay, well, you want 30 seconds? Do you need a minute? Do you need 2 minutes? And he's going, hold on. I'm like, well, just tell me how much time I need to kill so I have a frame of reference. And all of a sudden I hear cueing Steve, I'm like, welcome back to the 74th Miss Universe final. And I'm like, holy shit. In my head, I'm scrambling because I'm reading the prompter. And then I'm hearing in my ear while I'm reading, kill time. I'm like, what do I do? You took all my jokes out. You won't let me tell my jokes. So I'm like, I do the catwalk. I'll do the catwalk. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, the list is done. When I do it, it's like, Jesus Christ, thank God. Like that is a genuine reaction. I run over. Now, here's the thing. I grabbed the top 12 list, right? I'm thinking, this is Miss Universe. Where's the pomp and circumstance? Where's the pageantry? There's no like value. I'm getting a piece of paper like I printed out my electric bill. And I'm like, what is this? So I know it's thin. If I hold it up, somebody could literally scan in. So if you see me, I'm folding it with my hand and it looks like I'm cradling it. I'm cradling it to secure the names on it or the countries because I don't want anybody else to see it. I don't want somebody to zoom in with a great camera and they'll read right through the lighting. So to me, it was like, guys, give me like something like a card that says 74th Miss, like
that's what they usually did.
And I was really shocked at that. So in real time, I'm thinking, be protected. I mean, I could have phoned it in. I could have 100% just said, I don't give a shit. These guys are nuts. Scroll it out. Let them see it. I didn't want to do it because I still gave enough. You know, I cared. So I wanted to do a great job. So I was very protective of it. But that's an example, a microcosm of like the macro picture of just not paying attention to detail.
And the pageant fans, I mean, the whole idea of the announcements, that's one of the key parts of the suspense of it all. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you were to hold it up and, you know, people could, as you say, scan through those types of, I guess, deficiencies at the moment are really what a lot of people are, you know, feeling very sad about. Right. Did you have any vibe of the actually how the tabulations were being determined? Because in the past, they made a very big deal of Ernst & Young or whatever the accounting firm was there. Did you get any sense of how that was all being carried out?
I mean, I'll be completely blunt with you, Roger. That is something I remember as a kid, like it would come in a briefcase, right? And there was, again, pomp and circumstance. There was tension building, but there was also like, you're creating a cachet. You're creating a visual enticement of like drama. What's in there? It must be important. It's in a suitcase, right? I'm getting folded pieces of paper. And again, I think when it's all happening, I'm not thinking about the voting process. I'm not thinking about, I don't know the criteria to vote, right? I'm just there to host. All I'm thinking about is, why is this on a piece of paper like this? This is dispiriting to me as a host because I want to be reflective of the pageant and I'm the one holding this. Nobody else is. And I felt it was very shoddy, and I felt like those girls deserve better.
I'm going to go into the announcement of the winner very soon, but one thing I did want to ask you beforehand was during the Q&A rounds, where I guess we're getting to the final five. Mm-hmm. One thing that I really respected of you was I think the care that you were showing the contestants, because I'm not going to talk about specific hosts in the past, but often they did make it about them and their jokes and things like that. And they didn't realize or appreciate the fact that this is the most important moment in these delegates' lives. You know, this is a job that they have dreamt of for years, and, you know, picking the thing out of the bowl and all that sort of stuff. These are really important moments for them. And I felt that you showed them a lot of respect in that moment. What was your impression of the contestants, I guess, you know, getting to that final five, and what the feeling was of, you know, the occasion?
Yeah, I think obviously look to I know the sacrifices they personally made over 30 days, like the fact that you can't go outside for a run. You can't go to the gym and work out. You're kind of like sequestered to your room, and then you got to go out and hold up a Samsonite at a resort while they're making a commercial for all this stuff. And so I know like all the little things that they were doing. I was like, especially as you get to the end, I don't want to botch anything. Like after the Steve Harvey thing, it's like I don't want to be the story. I want to do everything I can to make sure that the precedent and the attention is garnered towards them. And that's why I kept, I got flack. What I learned in doing this too, you can't please everybody. And just like he keeps calling them miss. It's like, yeah, because I'm revering them. I'm appreciating them. So as we got to the final five, yeah, I don't think I was surprised. I think Thailand, obviously, she's the hometown hero, right? So everybody's going crazy. Philippines, I think, with everything that they've gone through and being a neighbor, I wasn't surprised by that. I think they both carried themselves very well. Cote d'Ivoire, Miss Mexico, and I believe it was Venezuela, right? Venezuela was the other one. Venezuela, it's interesting because we do a test run, and all the women have to be there for the test run, like at the rehearsal, and it happens to be who it happens to be, right? But Venezuela was in the test run. I think in the test run, she actually won in like the mock winning or whatever. But all the women have to be there to watch it. And I was like, boy, I hope that doesn't jinx her because she seemed really, really great in it. But when I was reading the questions, I just personally believed. I thought Miss Cote d'Ivoire I was like, wow, I think she just won this thing. I think she killed it. She's very graceful. She had a lot of poise. She nailed it with her answer. And I was in my head, the light bulb went off for me. Like she won, like reflexively. That's just what I thought. That was my initial thought, but yeah.
Yeah. Did you get it like when you weren't on stage or when you weren't, I guess, on camera per se, were you being able to kind of look into the judges pit or anything like that? Were you, seeing what their reactions were at any point?
No, I'll be honest with you. The only time I even interacted with them was during oh God, I forget the pop star's name. Jeff Satur.
Yeah.
Jeff Satur performed the second time. I went down in the pit, and as they're prepping for that, again, there's no leadership. So I felt it a responsibility as the host. I went over and I introduced myself to all of them. There was nobody like, hey, Steve, come over and meet the judge. There was none of that. And I think in most productions, there's some galvanizing leadership, So I met them all. But other than that, no, I didn't. I wasn't in the pit. I wasn't watching because you can't really see anything either. You're so blinded by the lights. All I know is just that, again, even when I got the results, now it was folded in like a gold kind of like thicker paper, but I still was like, I bet you can see through this. That's what I was thinking from a production standpoint. So that's why I really cradled it, because I didn't want to pull a Steve Harvey, even if I held it up and like you could see through it. Like I didn't want to be that guy. So I was being super protective of my responsibility in that moment.
Yes, and that where I was going to ask you next, because in the past it would be someone from the tabulating, the accounting firm, and they would hand it to the host, and it would be physically seen on TV. Who gave you those results that you ended up pulling out of your pocket? Do you remember?
I believe there was an assistant director named Roger, and I was just waiting for it from him, and he came over and gave it to me. And again, it's like, you read this stuff and then you go home and you think you had a good time and you're reading comments from people. It's like, he read it backwards. It's like, I'm not a fucking moron. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I know I'm not that stupid. So, yeah, it's shocking. Like the passion that the fans have with all this stuff, and just being in the room and seeing how communal and passionate and loud it was. But yeah, as I read it down, when I went your fourth runner up and it was Cote d'Ivoire, there's a moment you could see her look at me, and she kind of looks at me and kind of like that. And because in between the breaks, I went over and I congratulated all of them. And I said, good luck to everybody. I hope you all do a good job. And she said, don't pull a Steve Harvey. I said, I won't pull a Steve Harvey, you know, and she was making a fun joke. It was a nice little moment. And so as I walked back over, I kind of threw her a wink, like, good luck, you know. She seemed really outgoing, really cool. So when I read it and then she kind of looked at me and kind of gave a grimace, my heart sank in that moment. I really thought, boy, but then you see her poise and she just, boom, went back into professional mode, and she did it and she handled it and she got the job done. And as we went down the line, I'll be honest, I was surprised that Miss Mexico won. Yeah, I'm just judging it solely from what I heard in terms of those answers. But in the aftermath of all this, even when it happened, I had heard when she left the stage and was walking to the press conference, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead. I'm just recalling everything, but feel free to jump in. I just tell this last thing. I heard that she was being booed in the arena going from the show area to the press conference. And then my heart sank a second time because I thought, oh my God, this poor woman. I hope her reign isn't tainted, because I highly doubt she had anything to do with this. I hope she doesn't. It doesn't seem like she is, but I hope she can still enjoy this moment and enjoy the next year. But that kind of broke my heart a bit for her. I really felt for her, and I just hope that shadow that's cascading over everything right now can dissipate and she can get some sunshine.
Mm. I am going to ask you about her in a second. I just wanted to, I guess this is kind of getting a little bit into the split seconds. When you got those results, and I am jumping back a bit, from the moment that you opened it up and you saw the results, like, I mean, obviously there wasn't a camera on your face necessarily, but when you opened it up, did you kind of have a bit of a WTF moment, or like, what was your initial reaction?
When I got it,
split seconds, I'm sure.
Yeah, I got it just before we're coming back. Okay. So they gave me this folded paper. I'm like, you got to be shitting me again. And I look at it and I'm like, everybody in this room wants to know what's on this paper. And I'm the only one in this room that knows, other than the two people probably backstage, you know? So I'm looking at it and I'm reading it. And when I saw Cote d'Ivoire as the first runner-up, I'm going to announce, I was kind of like,
whoa, as the fourth runner-up.
That threw me for a loop. And that kind of, again, I was like, damn, really? That was shocking to me. It was shocking. And then I saw Mexico won. I was like, oh, congratulations to her. That's pretty cool. But I'm keeping a poker face because that paper is handed to me, and that right side of the room, they're staring at you the whole time. They're looking for tells, looking for anything. So I was trying to just be as poker faced as possible and just be like, just being super cool about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you had gone through them and given them, wished them good luck. Sorry, I'm getting into semantics, but this is kind of, I think, gold. When you had wished them all good luck, had you actually seen the results?
I had not seen the results at that point. No.
Okay.
I wish them all luck. I think I did that the whole time when we were on stage throughout the course of the rehearsal and taping. I was always trying to keep morale up on the stage and goofing off and just trying to make them laugh. But especially at the end, there's so much credence to it and gravity to those moments. I didn't want to get in their head too much and start goofing. I want to be very respectful in those moments.
Yeah. Okay, so we've crowned the new Miss Universe. Thankfully, no Steve Harvey moments. What was your role, if any, at that moment? Were you kind of relieved of your duties? Did you have anything else to do afterwards? Any photos to be taken? Or
the show ended and nobody said anything to me. Mario never came over and said thanks. Mario never came over and said good job. Nawat never said anything. Raul never said anything. Not one person came over to me after the show. It was just like, I guess I did it. I guess I'm done. I mean, again, the lack of attention to detail, that list was given to me, right? And I said, well, nobody's even asked for this. I should give this to Miss Mexico, but she got whisked away. And I was like, well, she's got to be at the coronation tonight, so I'll be at the coronation. I'll hold on to this and I'll give it to her then. But I would think that for the keepsake, this should be something that's taken from my hands as soon as the taping's done and given to her.
Yeah, it's like the Academy Award, the Oscar thing. Yeah,
chucked it in the trash. I could have left it on the stage. I could have done 1,000 things with it, but I was just like, does anybody give a shit here? Like, does anybody care? So I stuffed it in my pocket. I held on to it. I was like, don't lose this. And then my wife and I walked around and took pictures and congratulated everybody. And I think sometimes the things people don't realize about these competitions or like a pageant is everybody wants to be backstage. Everybody wants to come and hang out. Everybody wants to be there. It's like there's 119 losers. There's a lot of women that are deeply affected by this. So backstage, it's a bit morose. It's a bit shocking. It's a bit of everything. And I just wanted to do everything I could again, even in those moments to just say congratulations on a great run. And, good luck if you do it again. But it was a pleasure sharing the stage with you.
And so prior to you then returning back home, you didn't have any further contact with any of the Miss Universe organization execs?
Nothing. Nobody. I'm telling you, even at the coronation, they asked me to do 30 minutes of stand-up in a ballroom where there's like finger food going around, okay? And I walked in, and to my liaison, I said, there is no way I can do stand-up here, because stand-up takes a modicum of like, you got to listen, you got to pay attention. And they're all coming to a party. They don't want to listen at a party. So I said, I'll introduce everybody. And that's exactly what I did. I introduced Raul, I introduced Mario, I introduced Nawat, and they took the stage from there, and they went through the coronation process. And then this is my Trump story coming full circle. The coronation ends, and I'm thinking, here we go. Let's blow it out. Let's have some fun. Let's blow off some steam. Everybody's here. Nope. No band, no DJ, no bar, no drinks. I was like, what the fuck is this? These girls kind of, they're not allowed to drink. They're not allowed to do anything for a month in Thailand. And here they are ready to blow it out. And somebody pulled me aside. We were talking, and they said when Trump ran it, the after parties were unbelievable. Cristal, Pitbull, like all these performers was like to the nines. And then you go here, and it was just like absolutely nothing. So I went down to the cafe, which is like a diner in the hotel. And I ordered a bunch of Heinekens with some other people. And Miss Great Britain was over there, and a few other contestants were there. And they weren't happy. They weren't happy that they could celebrate or even like pat each other on the back and say, hey, we got through it together. There was just no opportunity to bond, because once that coronation ended upstairs, it's kind of it. And it really, really broke my heart. And it really, I'll be honest with you, it pissed me off. Like I was really pissed for them. Like you sacrifice all that, you go through all that, and you can't even have a glass of champagne on the house. Like that really, really irked me. And that's when I got angry. And I'm the host. I can't even imagine being them. I mean, if you're them, I'm not surprised a lot of them resigned afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it's not only the 30 days that they're there, it's the year that they've been the reigning queen. I mean, as I said, a lot of them have tried, like Miss Philippines tried for 7 or 8 years to compete in Miss Universe. Some of them have, gone away and got married, and, that now that they can compete again, there's been such a build up to so many of these women and their stories to actually get to that point. It's such a life moment for them, and for then, I guess, the actual Miss Universe experience to be a letdown. I mean, for someone who is brand new to the pageant world, it's quite telling that you could sense that disappointment with them.
Yeah, it was a bummer. It was a bummer. I certainly, again, hope it's not from here forward for Fatima, who seemed very sweet and kind when I met her. But boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, I've been to lesser events that had bigger parties than that, and it really kind of gutted me. I felt for them. I really did.
So on the subject of Fatima, you did a post in the last couple of days. I think, it was quite heartfelt to be, highlighting the fact that she is hopefully an innocent party in all of this. Why was it important for you to, I guess, make that statement? I mean, I guess you've made some comments about who you thought might have won, but why was it important for you to, I guess, make that remark about, supporting her for the year ahead? I just think
it was there's an enormous cloud of suspicion that's going to surround this year. I think with all the clatter that was going on then you had the final, and the voting and the lack of like a briefcase, or the fact that it's coming out on a sheet of paper, like that leads to the conspiracy theories. And then in the aftermath, when you have all these resignations, and then you have charges of fraud against Anne, I believe, and then all of a sudden then when Raul says, "Hey, I think I'm out of here. This is too much for me," and you think, "Oh my God, that's a story," and then the next day, then he's charged with drug and arms and trafficking. You're like, when does the drama end? And you're just thinking, any one of those stories would have crippled the whole thing, right? And then you have a multitude. It's like a baker's dozen of stories that all, amalgamate around this thing. And I'm just like, man, I just feel so bad for Fatima, because I would always err on the side of caution. I would highly doubt that she's back there pulling the strings with other people to orchestrate this. I'd hope not. It doesn't seem like she would be. And I would just think you're innocent until proven guilty. That's embedded here, in the psyche of anybody who's an American here in the States. So that's the way I would go about it. And I would just pray that she can still enjoy this, over these next few months. It would break my heart if she had nothing to do with it. And this is how she wins. It would be unfair.
You've kind of already answered the question for me, but if by chance there was the the opportunity for you to host Miss Universe 2026 in Puerto Rico, the 75th anniversary of the pageant, no less, what would your thoughts be?
Well, I don't think I'll ever be asked again, because I don't think I ever, the things I was posting in the aftermath, I don't think they were vile. I don't think they were done in a mean way. If anything, I felt like I was trying to communicate constructive criticism to the leadership and to the owners of Miss Universe, of what I observed as someone who is just trying to do the best job possible. All that said, I felt like the leadership was severely lacking. I was really disappointed at the lack of leadership. The greatest aspect of this whole experience was the 120 women I met. They were so awesome. And I thought, oh, they're going to be posh. They're going to be too cool for school. They're going to be, all these preconceived notions of like the most gorgeous women in the world. And they couldn't have been nicer, and they could have been sweeter, and they could have been more gracious. And every one of them was so cool backstage. You get to talk to some of them, or wish them luck, or go get them. And then, oh, hey, how are you feeling? It was like that constantly. So for me, I would do it again in a heartbeat, for the sole experience of getting to know them a bit more, or doing the best job I could for them. Because I knew it is a big burden of responsibility to do that stuff. And I think in lesser hands, I think some people will phone it in and not really care. And I took that responsibility seriously.
And I've got to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I mean, I made certain comments about that on my social channel as well. I really did. I did get that sincerity, and I would personally love to see you host again. So,
well, I don't think I will either, because of the Latin flair of it all. I'm sure that they'll probably get a very prominent Latin entertainer or host or MC, and that probably makes sense. But at the end of the day, do I have regrets doing it? No, because I got to witness one of the most drama-laden Miss Universe. So if you're going to do it, you might as well do it where there's a lot of static. I mean, it was a hell of an experience, and I never experienced anything like that before. But yeah, I had a ball.
Glad to hear it, and well, let's see what the future holds. But I guess now back to your somewhat regular programming. I believe you're on a tour at the moment? Is that right?
Yeah, I tour constantly. I have a residency in Las Vegas, so I'm there every 2 weeks at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club. I'm prepping a new hour, and I wrote this would be my third film, I believe, that I wrote, and I'll be directing that. So I'll be taking off very shortly in the new year to do that. So this was something else, that's for sure. I've never, I could have never dreamt it would be like this, and I've seen all the stories. I've talked to a few other people about it, and my hope is that somebody makes a documentary about this past year's pageant, because it was I mean, if you can keep somebody like me interested in this, then I think anybody will be interested in it, because I'm a big sports guy. I'm a nerd. I love comics, Marvel and DC movies, but this was something else.
I think the types of Netflix docos, and you've got the Michael Jordan one. You don't need to necessarily be a devotee of that particular subject matter, but I think that the drama and the actual the dynamics of things, maybe you're the one to make it. You never know.
Maybe I'll throw my hat in the ring, but yeah, it was crazy because it's a world I don't know a lot about, but again, being privy to it, you do see the pageantry that goes into it. When I saw Miss Thailand walk, or Miss Philippines, she had this billowing gown and it floated, and I was off to the side watching. I was like, that is beautiful. And I was like, look how far you come, Steve. You're complimenting these evening gowns. You're appreciating the artistry in it all. That was really cool. I just appreciate the hard work that goes into it, and you really see it backstage. That's when you get to see on stage, you're seeing the finished product, but when you get to visit the kitchen, you're seeing prep and the sous chef and all that stuff. It's like, whoa, this is overwhelming. So much respect to all those women.
Dare I ask, did anything spark any potential stand-up material?
Oh yeah. I'll have a lot of bits coming out. I actually worked on it this weekend in Pittsburgh, and I was like, all right, I think there's something here. So I'll definitely talk about it, my experience. But again, I'm not a spiteful person. I'm not a vengeful person. I think anything I say will always be out of like under the banner of being constructive criticism, but also like being honest about my experiences. I'm not going to lie. It was a very intriguing experience. I think there's a lot of interest in what happened. And so, when it happens, it's like, I'm more than happy to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve Byrne, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you, Roger.
Especially dealing with jet lag and all that good stuff. But
yeah, and I apologize. I want to tell everybody for the record, okay? Roger had me down to interview at 9 p.m. my time, and he's making it work on his calendar, which is all the way halfway around the world, okay? And I fell asleep at 9 o'clock, and I hit him up at like 1 a.m. And I'm like, hey, I'm awake if you still want to do it. And you did it, and I apologize. That's on me, buddy.
I was not going to throw you under the bus, but you did it, so
I'll do it. Yeah, a public apology. That's how it works. Nawat, you apologize, and you hold yourself accountable for things.
Noted.
You keep that in, all right?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll get to sleep sometime soon.
Yes, and absolutely, Roger, and continued success and good work to you. And fingers crossed you get a good one next year in Puerto Rico.
Awesome. Thanks,
all
Steve.
right, buddy.
Cheers.
My sincere thanks to Steve Byrne for his time, his openness, and for giving pageant fans a perspective we never usually get from the person literally on stage when everything unfolds. For those watching, I hope this conversation brought some clarity and context to an edition of Miss Universe that has sparked more debate than any in recent memory. If you enjoyed this, please check out my other Miss Universe 2025 deep dive videos, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, respectfully. And of course, if Steve is coming to your city, go see him live. I'll link his tour dates below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.